How's it going, everybody? We're getting ready to wrap up what has been a very productive fishing night. We've caught a lot of good fish. Caught my personal best blue tonight. And what I really wanted to get to in this video is the importance of bait preference as far as catfish go. There are 5 varieties of catfish native in my state. You have black bullhead, yellow bullhead, channel catfish, flathead catfish, and then you have the apex predator, the blue catfish. And any particular variety you care for, whatever that might be, you're going to want to be selective with your bait. Now, I am not an expert on yellow or bullhead catfish. I'm not much of an expert on blue catfish, because that is not my fish of choice. But as far as bait goes, that is going to be your biggest determining factor as to whether or not you're going to have a decent fishing night. Now, if you go with your particular fish of choice's favorite bait, you're probably going to consistently pull in more fish on a regular basis than if you go out there and test around. Now, testing around is important, because on different nights, fish bite on different things. Fish are very selective. There's some that... Sorry about that. My little car holder fell out to slop. Good, get that back up and adjusted. Alright. Technical difficulties. Alright. Now, where was it? Fish are picky. They'll bite on different things on different nights. It's just the flavor of the day. Same way you go out and, some days you're feeling like pizza, some days you're feeling like a burger. Well, fish is the same way. On a particular night, such as tonight, in which fish switched it up on me and I just so happened to have the bait that they was wanting, you get a hold of more fish, and some nights you'll use their favorite food and they won't be on it because it's not what they're chasing after that particular night. Now, as far as flathead catfish go, which is my particular preference, which is what I'd like to start with, flathead catfish prefer natural baits and live baits. Now, you can catch flathead catfish on cut bait, which I suppose I should make that preference. I mean, that distinction previous to giving you these particular options. Cut bait is any sort of dead bait that's cut up, maybe bloody, maybe stinky, something that puts out some sort of potent smell into the water that draws fish in. Whenever you're keying in on catching a fish, any sort of fish, you're keying in on one of their senses. Some fish have senses that you don't have, like they can feel things in the water that are moving, and catfish in particular, they can feel things in the water that's moving, and they also have a distinct sense of smell. They're not so much a visual hunter, they're just out there swimming in the dark, so unless they feel your bait in the water, or they smell your bait in the water, they ain't gonna go chasing after it. So here's what I'm going to tell you ought to do as far as flathead go. You can go with a live bait. Now, live bait is anything that is living and breathing when you put it on the hook. That's going to go out there and move around. The more movement, the better. That's why bluegill make excellent bait. Crappie make excellent bait. Some people use white bass. I've heard very good things about white bass. I've been told by some people from down there in the south that white bass is the favorite food of a flathead catfish because they're very active. They can sense them in the water really easily. So you're going to want to go with a live bait. You can use anything from a worm to bluegill to a creek chub, and there are different methods of getting these fish. You might have a local bait house that might have bluegill. They're probably going to have worms. They're probably going to have creek chubs. They're probably going to have shiners. So, really is what suits your fancy. Whatever the fish are biting on in your particular area. Personally, up here in Ohio, I have a lot better luck with bluegill. I've seen some people catch some big ones off a live chub too, though. Bluegill is my bait of choice. Of course, I'd love to get on some crappie and bring them out here. Luckily enough, Ohio's not too restrictive on what you use for bait. They are restrictive on what you keep and take out to water, in state waters. But if you're looking to buy crappie, you could possibly go to some sort of nursery, where people buy fish to stock their ponds and stuff like that. You get some fingerlings, which is a young crappie. Probably ain't gonna be able to find them full size, but where you can go out to the creek and catch them of state legal, requirements. I think it's over 8 inches or over 9 inches for a crappie in order to take them out to state water. If you catch them out of private property, if you have permission to fish that private property, I don't think there are any restrictions on what you can take out the water. I think it's really the preference of the owner. Some people use live bass, live largemouth, I've heard some people using eels. I've heard a lot of things. I've seen people catch... Personally, I've seen people catch flathead off of goldfish, which is not legal for state waters because they're not natural to the water. A lot of people will use goldfish, though. I don't believe in using goldfish personally, which brings you into a whole nother conversation, which is, do fish care whether or not you are fishing with things that are natural to the water? And artificials would suggest that's not true, that fish don't particularly care, and people catching fish off goldfish would suggest that. But I personally think that cats are more attuned to detect what is in their natural environment. They like baits from their natural environment. So I particularly like using bluegill. I highly suggest bluegill. People use it all around the country for shovelhead. I've seen people catch them off worms. I've seen them catch them off cut bait. I've seen them catch them off liver, chicken livers, cherry chicken, stuff like that. But if you want your most consistent big flathead catfish, you are going to want to use large bluegill, in my opinion. As far as live bait goes, creek chubs will work, but there's a problem there in that depending on how talented you are at casting, you are either going to have more or less trouble casting a bait that does not have a lot of distinct cartilage to keep the fish on your hook. It also depends on how you're fishing. If you're fishing out of a boat, you're going to have a lot of easier time if you can just drop baits directly down in the water. You don't have to cast them 150 yards, keeping them on your hook. Or if you want to use rubber bands, there's a whole lot of tricks out there. I'm not aware of all of them. Talk to your local redneck, I'm sure they'll tell you. Now, as far as blue cats go, I've caught good blue cats. The biggest blue cats I've caught have actually been off live bait. Now, from what I'm aware, blue cats are a lazy fish. And they're very picky. The larger they get, and in general, large fish, the bigger they get, the more selective they are about their food, the fresher they want it to be. I am of the mindset that fresh cut skipjack from a throw net or live shad are the two best ways to catch blue cat. So you can go with your good old Santee Cooper rig, which I'm sure you can find a lot of information on how to rig up, here on the YouTubes. Or you could go with, and excuse me for not looking directly at the camera, I'm watching my poles. This is one of my last fishing trips for the season. Gonna be gearing up for next year. But you can go with fresh cut skipjack. You can go with a lot of things for blues. They'll eat on chicken liver. I've seen them. The biggest blue cat I ever seen caught was off something called cherry chicken, which is where you marinate chicken liver in cherry Kool-Aid powder. A lot of people try a lot of different things as far as cut bait goes because they want to get distinct smells out there. Some people will spray WD-40 on their bait because they think that it brings in the catfish. I don't particularly care for that because I don't particularly care for hurting the fish or the environment. But there are a lot of things people use for blue cats. But personally, I'd suggest skipjack or live shad. Those are probably going to be your two go-tos. I've heard a lot of good things about live shad. I don't use them personally, so I can't recommend them completely. But fresh cut skipjack, the head pieces and the body pieces, and if you want to go and check out Kayak Catfish, he will show you how to properly cut fresh skipjack, so that you can cut the gut pocket out of a center chunk, and get some bleeding down where there's some veins right above the gut pocket. And there's a lot of cartilage in that there midsection for you to properly keep that piece of cut bait on the hook when you're casting it. As far as channel cat go, if you particularly like channel cat, first thing off, I'm sorry, can't I can't even imagine how many times you've been stuck. But what an ornery fish, channel cat. But cut bait is typically what channel cat go after. They're kind of like bottom feeders. They like liver. They like dead goldfish head. I mean, not gold, bluegill head. Cut up bluegill. I'm sure they'd eat a skipjack head if they're big enough. Personally, if you're just going out there to have a good time and you're not trying to catch you a big old channel cat, you just want to catch a whole bunch of fish, put some liver on your hook, use a J hook, and go out there and, net you a whole bunch of channel cat. Lord bless, that's what my great-grandfather did, who taught me. He was a big channel cat fisherman, stuck himself many times. They'd get up under his watch and all that sort of stuff, stick him. Part of the reason why I wear gloves, whether you approve of it or don't, that's part of the reason why I wear gloves, because I've seen him get stuck so many times. But if you particularly like channel cat, put some chicken livers on your hook. They're cheap. You can't beat them. Personally, if you're going with chicken livers, I'm going to highly suggest you go to a Kroger's or one of Kroger's particular like sister brands that they bought up or something like that, like Save-A-Lot, and go out there and get Heritage Farms, because that seems to stick to the hook the best. I fished with them for a while when I was still fishing for channel cat, and it's cheap. You'll go out there, you have fun. You'll catch a whole bunch of fish. You ain't gonna catch, nothing of size unless you get lucky. But, good on you. You know, you like catching fish, you like catching fish. I ain't going, you know, poo-poo all over you for liking you some channel cat, you know. I just particularly don't like small fish, so I don't fish for channel cat. There ain't nothing wrong with liking catching a whole bunch of fish, you know, it's just, you know, whatever suits you. Now, if you're going to go out and catch yellow belly, or which is a yellow bullhead, or if you're going to go out in there and catch black bullhead, I am not an expert on these two, but as far as I'm aware, they typically live in creeks, and if you want to catch bullhead, you should probably fish with worms or with like night crawlers. I would assume they'd eat on chicken liver. They're also a bottom feeder, similar to a channel catfish. They're just they're almost like a smaller version of a channel catfish. They look very similar. They make good bait for a shovel. I know that some people like using, which, if you don't know, a shovel and a flathead are the same fish. I know that some people like using yellow bullhead for bait for flathead catfish. They make the argument that yellow bullhead in creeks eat flatheads' eggs, and so flatheads will kill them out of instinct. I don't know how much validity there is to that. I have caught catfish off of yellow bullhead, yellow bellies, but I'm not particularly a fan. For one, they have several horns that make it difficult to hook them up. I don't particularly like hurting catfish. I don't like hurting any fish in general, but catfish, it puts a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, they make decent bait, you know, especially if you cut off their horns and, you know, put them out there. You know, they're easier to bait up. They're very lively. You know, they're going to get a lot of movement in the water, which is always what you're looking for. But it really depends on, you know, how big the yellow belly is, you know, because beyond a certain size, you know, some fish won't eat those particularly big baits. Big baits are great. I love using big baits. I think you consistently catch bigger fish if you use big baits. But, yeah, I'm just not a fan of the yellow bellies. I think that, in my experience, fish have to be particularly hungry. Flatheads have to be particularly hungry in order to eat yellow bellies, which means they probably are coming out of creeks, you know, if they're eating those, because it would kind of have to follow that same sort of mentality. Well, that same sort of story that some fishermen give, that they eat the flathead eggs. Sorry, my pole's bouncing. I'm trying to decide whether it's the wind or whether it's a bite. The way it's bouncing, I'm thinking it's the wind. I ain't had a bite on that pole all night. Just the other two. Now, if you like catching yellow bullhead or black bullhead, you know, that's good on you. You know, I don't understand it. I don't know why you would go out and try and catch such a hard fish to catch, you know, when they're so heavily farmed and used for bait. But yeah, if you don't know a whole lot about these particular catfish, yellow belly and or yellow bullhead and black bullhead, they grow to about a pound, 2 pound. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the world record is. You go and take a peek, leave it in the comments if you'd like. They don't grow particularly large. They're two of the smaller varieties of catfish in the United States. I don't know which one's smaller. The other, it's from what I've seen, the black bullhead grows larger than the yellow bullhead. And then channel cat is the next step above them, and they'll grow to decent sizes. You know, I think I've seen some records for like 60-pound channel catfish. They'll get up to a good size. And then, of course, flathead is the second biggest of the varieties in the United States. I think there's another catfish called a bowfin catfish or something of that nature. I've never seen one. I've never caught one. I've never heard of them being in any natural waters. I would assume that they're in like private lakes and stuff like that have been stocked from another country. I'm really just trying to talk about the natural varieties of catfish that I am aware of that people fish for. Depending on where you live, these fish will either be more prevalent or less prevalent. I'm not sure exactly where yellow bullhead or black bullhead live. I just know that they live in creeks. I know that they live up there in Ohio. I know they live down south. I don't know how far they spread out. I can tell you that you can look at charts and stuff like that for where these fish live, like flathead catfish. You know, they don't go very far, much farther north than Ohio, and I've heard something about them being in Michigan or Minnesota and people pulling them out of wintering holes up there, but I've never experienced that or heard an actual story about it from somebody firsthand. It's just stuff that I've heard about, you know, in general. And flathead will run all the way down to the bottom of the South, all the way down there into Texas. Not really that far out west. Like, I know they're not in Arizona, so that could kind of give you a sort of geographical idea. I know they don't run out towards Florida. I don't know why. I know that there's a big concerted effort in Georgia to get them out of the water, so I know they exist there. But yeah, depending on where you live, take a look at a chart, figure out, you know, which fish you're kind of interested in, you know, that, you know, where you're particularly going to take a look for them, you know, and if they're in your state, you know, what does their natural environment look like, and we can get more into that. And then the blue cat is the apex predator, the largest variety. They will get up to 150 pounds. That is their potential. Sorry, I thought I heard a clicker going off. It was just a car driving by. Clicker is something that you set on a reel so that it clicks when your line begins to take out from the open spool, so that you are aware that you have a bite. Flathead catfish will get up to 120 pounds. They could have the potential to grow larger than that. That is my particular favorite species. Blue cat are around a lot of places, very similar to a flathead. They run all up and down the Mississippi. Great fish, ornery fish, angry. I don't particularly like them because I believe the bigger they get, the uglier they are, the meaner they are. I don't particularly care for that. Flathead have always been my fish of choice. I love flathead. I fished for channels when I was a boy with my grandfather, but as of late I've developed into a bit of a flathead catfisherman. So I could tell you the benefits and well, the pros and the cons of fishing for these particular different fish. Blues are typically few and far between. You don't see a lot of blues. You got to work for them, unless you're fishing waters that are particularly highly populated by them. That also depends on the day and what bait you're using. The water temperature, you know, whether or not they're in the spawn, because when they're in the spawn, they go in the nest for a long time, and you know, you don't really have the opportunity to get a hold of them, and they don't come off till, I don't believe, July, but or the back half of July, something like that. But I can get into all that stuff in another video. I just wanted to kind of get you an idea of what you want to look for bait with these particular fish, so that you have a better idea of how to get a hold of some of your favorite fish. If you haven't decided what your target species is going to be, you know, depending on which one of these baits is easier for you to get a hold of might be a determining factor. You know, it isn't for me because bluegill aren't exactly easy to get a hold of. You know, you gotta either go out and work for them or go out and buy them. which they aren't cheap. It's something like $18 a dozen. But you know, these are some things to think about. Is how easy you can get a hold of your bait. You know, how big a fish you want to get a hold of. Do you want to catch a lot of fish? Do you want to catch one big fish when you go out at night? Do you want to go out and chase after big fish and maybe not get a hold of nothing all night? You know, this will start to give you an idea of what you want to go out and fish for on a night-to-night basis. What are you going to get passionate about when you get into the sport that they call fishing? Now, last two things I want to leave you with is a fisherman is only as great as the water he fishes. The body of water that you fish will determine, based off of the maximum size of fish, the amount of fish, how healthy the fish are, how good of a fisherman you're going to be. Because it's going to give you opportunities to challenge yourself if you can hit that trifecta. You know, if you got big fish, if you have healthy fish, you know, and if you have a lot of fish in the water, it's going to give you a chance to challenge yourself to see if you're able to handle that level of fish. And it's going to show you, fishing's going to throw you some curveballs. And also, the bigger the fish you catch, you know, the more people, and the more consistently you catch those fish, the more people are going to respect you. We look at people like Catfish Dave and Kayak Catfish for things like that, you know. And then the second thing I want to leave you with is, oh, well, shoot, did I lose it? There was a second thing. I don't know what that second thing is at the moment. Well, we got a fish. Whew. Sorry about that, guys. We got him in. Well, fellas, that makes a fish on all three poles tonight. I love that. Oh, I get it. You're mad. I get it. I get it, Will. I'm sorry. Nope. Let me make this easy. There we go. We got that hook up on out of there. Live bluegill right there. Look at that fish. He's probably 5 pounds. And that'll be the Flathead Catfisherman signing out. Have a nice day, folks.